right, everybody, welcome back to Cheap Heat Wrestling Show. This coming weekend, for those uninitiated or unaware, happens to be WWE SummerSlam, coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Two-night event, the second biggest WWE show on the calendar. And as such, I wanted to go ahead and go through the card and give you some of my predictions. So, without further ado, let's go into the Night 1 card, and let's start off with what I think is going to be the opening match of Night 1. And I assume this is going to still be on ESPN, like they've been doing for the first hour of the shows. Hard telling whether or not, because I don't think they've confirmed yes or no on that, but I would think that they're probably going to, and on top of that, we've seen some history with one of these guys in this match. If he's not in the main event, he wants to go on first. So let's go into Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar, Hell in a Cell, the rubber match of their feud, and looking at this, I think it has to be Oba Femi. They have simultaneously been doing a great job of building Oba Femi as a true new main event guy, and also been sort of shooting themselves in the foot with Oba Femi. It's such a strange Schrodinger's push, if you will. He has already gotten his big pinfall victory clean as a sheet over Brock Lesnar. Did it at WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year, and seemingly Brock retired at the end of that match, just for it to be about 2 or 3 weeks of a retirement, and then he just comes back, sets up another match with Oba, Brock wins that one, and here we are now, coming into SummerSlam. On top of that, Oba wins King of the Ring, huge win for him. Finally, some of the young guys on this roster getting pushed, just for him to come out the Monday after that show and go, actually, I don't want to use my title shot. I would rather fight Brock Lesnar again. And then trying to do this weird justification of, if I use my title shot, I can't be certain that Brock will not come out and ruin my title match and cost me that match, which is another one of those, like, yeah, from a certain point of view, that's 4D chess. On the other end of it, that's really stupid. And at that point, why have Oba win that tournament? Why even put Oba in that tournament if you knew you were going to have him win it and then not challenge for the title on this show? It is absolute asinine booking from that perspective. Also, I would think, and this is sort of the bigger part of the prediction coming in here, it seems like this is maybe Brock's last match for sure this time, but then again, everybody going into WrestleMania thought, nah, this isn't going to be Brock's last match. He's going to have this one with Oba, and then we'll run it back at SummerSlam in Minnesota, and Brock will go out in his hometown just for Brock to do what he did. And there are a couple schools of thought on this. There are a couple ways this played out. Either Brock Lesnar, for shits and giggles, decided, you know what? I'm gonna fake my own retirement at WrestleMania. I'm gonna do a big, I hug it out with Paul Heyman, get all emotional. The first time I've ever really shown emotion on any WWE show in my entire life. Do the whole take my boots off, put them in the ring, and walk out. And it was a really good moment because it was so unexpected. And it had this weird sense of finality to it. Brock goes out putting over the guy who seemingly is going to get the Brock Lesnar push this year. And we had been sort of setting that up even after the weird aside where Brock comes out of retirement to go right back into a feud with him. Oba winning King of the Ring, winning it in the fashion he did, was really setting up Oba to have that Brock Lesnar push. Where within the first few months he's on the main roster, the first few months he's on these shows, he ends up challenging for and potentially winning the World Championship, the big one. And instead, he's fighting Brock Lesnar again. I think they've done as good as they can with how awful they've put this together, but this is a problem of your own making. How are you going to try and do this? And honestly, I think the whole fake Brock retirement at WrestleMania is only going to make people go, well, maybe Brock's doing it again if he decides to actually hang it up this time. So, I don't know. I think Oba has to win it. Brock is one of those guys. He's always going to be Brock. Everybody's always going to take him seriously. He's always going to be an intimidating force. Even if this is not his last match and he continues on, Brock is always going to be Brock. But you have the opportunity right now to make a legitimate star in Oba Femi. And if you do not take it for the sake of trying to make Brock Lesnar look good, you are going to detrimentally hurt Oba Femi. And we are in a period right now of WWE where they get really hot on one of these young stars and give them a decent push and start setting up the pieces for them to finally achieve that height very quickly and put a fresh face into this main event scene that desperately needs some fresh faces, only for them to either completely misbook them for the next year or get bored and just stop doing it. And I don't think you have the luxury of waiting because he is young with Oba Femi. I think you just need to do it now and solidify him at that level now. Moving on from Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar, let's go over to the Women's World Championship match. Liv Morgan, for the first time since she won the belt at WrestleMania, defending the championship against Io Sky. And yeah, Liv has held this belt since WrestleMania, has done quite literally nothing with it. The biggest thing Liv Morgan has done since she won this title is be in the Queen of the Ring tournament. A really baffling decision that had me puzzled in the moment, and her making a run all the way to the finals to face Io Sky, where she then loses to Io Sky, just to set up a rematch later on. Okay, well now you've blown the match that you're doing at SummerSlam to set up the match at SummerSlam, and Liv spent all of that time during the tournament not defending the belt. I mean, she wasn't doing it before, but she certainly wasn't defending it during that tournament. So, again, just a weird case of why would you build this way? It makes absolutely no sense. But that's how they decided to do it. That said, Liv, for as long as she's held this belt, has done nothing with it. It seems like we were just spinning wheels until Stephanie Vaquer came back from injury, and we don't know if she's going to be back from injury and show up at SummerSlam during this match, or if she is dealing with a more serious injury than people thought, and she's going to be out for a lot longer than was assumed. But regardless of that, I think you have to have Io Sky win this match. Just to do something new with the belt and hopefully have somebody actually defending this belt on a regular basis. Because as it stands, it is just a prop for Liv Morgan to carry around and do her best women's champion of all time thing. You know, again, just slopping up the catchphrase factory. Everybody's got to have their catchphrase. Everybody's got to have their thing. We got to have the thing we can put on a t-shirt, and people can put on signs, and people can chant along to. And hell, maybe we'll ask our awful music creators to do what they always do, and put that at the beginning of Liv Morgan's new music. But you can't continue to have Liv Morgan as champion at this point. It's so far past the point of there being any interest left in that, considering how terrible this reign has been so far. It is time to just give Io Sky another run with the belt, and hopefully do something good with it. Let's move on to a 6-man tag match. LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, and Royce Keys taking on the bloodline of Jacob Fatu, Jay, and Jimmy Uso. This is a weird sort of just thrown together one for me. And obviously they've been building this on TV. They've been doing stuff. I mean, LA Knight, it feels like he has been feuding with the Bloodline for 3 years at this point, and I don't know what the end goal at this point is for him. It seems like it's just give him something to do to keep him on TV without any actual direction or end in mind. Royce Keys, good to see him on a pay-per-view. I mean, the former Powerhouse Hobbs, one of those guys I absolutely adored in AEW. I was both sad to see him go from there because I am a bigger AEW fan than I am a WWE fan, but also, I still watch WWE. It's good to see him getting that big of an opportunity on that much of a bigger stage, and they kinda haven't done anything with him, so it's nice to see him finally showing up and doing some stuff. Really, the most interesting part of this match is Solo Sikoa, which is crazy to think because even a year ago, did anybody care about Solo Sikoa anymore? The experiment had failed, right? We can all agree that him becoming the new leader of the Bloodline and doing this whole new Bloodline Civil War thing and them continuously trying to push him as a main event star, it just was not working. He just wasn't that guy. And then as soon as Jacob Fatu came in, it was like, oh, hey, there's the actual main eventer of this group. There's the one that's actually cool and interesting and people can get behind. And Solo is just kind of here. But he's really turned it around, and I think that's a credit to his ability as a performer. I don't know that I'm super interested in watching any Solo Sikoa matches, but his character at this point is in a really interesting spot, and I think there is a chance of them turning Solo into a proper babyface, which I would have never pegged in a million years, but they've sort of got him in that spot now. That being said, I could see the world, because WWE, since the moment Roman came back and won the Rumble, seems to be in the mode of recapturing the glory days of a couple years ago, and trying to put back together the Bloodline, trying to rebuild it, trying to build the shows around it again, and making it like the good times when everybody thought this company was the greatest thing to ever exist and it was in a brand new boom period. And I can see a world where Solo Sikoa turns on his partners, rejoins the Bloodline, and we just extend out LA Knight feuding with the Bloodline and have it be LA Knight versus Solo Sikoa for the next, 5 months. And we'll finally get a big blow-off between those two at WrestleMania, and that'll be the end of their feud. But I just don't know that that is the interesting path, but that's the path I could see, so I think the Bloodline is gonna win this one. I think Jacob Fatu is one of those guys. They sort of soured his push, and now he's just sort of teaming with the Usos. Solo Sikoa is now in an interesting spot where they could give him that same sort of push, although I don't think it would be nearly as high quality or high level. But this company seems to be allergic right now to taking those big creative swings and following the more interesting threads of the stories and just going back to old Reliable. And I think part of old Reliable is putting Solo Sikoa back in the Bloodline. Moving from a 6-man tag match to a 6-woman tag match, it's kind of surprising to see them do this on the same night of the show. It seems like you would have split those up so you're not running a repeat. I guess technically stipulation's not the way to look at it, but the same match type twice in one night. But they are running the Bella Twins and Paige against Fatal Influence of JC Jane, Lainey Reed, and Fallon Henley. Fatal Influence has to win this one. It's nice to see people really enjoying the Bella Twins and Paige back in WWE. To me, it's not really that nostalgic because I was at the right age when they were around to sort of be over thinking it was cool. I was, I think, like in middle school, going into high school, and even in high school, when it was like the Bella Twins were on top of the women's division. I think AJ Lee was still around a little bit. Paige was there, and it was like right around when Charlotte and Becky and Sasha and Bayley would have been getting called up, and sort of giving that division the shot in the arm it desperately needed at that point. But I, as much as I liked Paige back in that era because she was something totally different and really was integral to that shift in mentality for the women's division, time has not been kind to Paige. She's had serious injury problems, had to retire for several years, and I think her comeback run in AEW sort of showed you do not hold up to the modern standard of women's wrestling. Right? It's shifted more towards actual, like, proper ring quality and being taken seriously. And while she's not necessarily the worst in the ring that you've ever seen, she's also not putting on absolute bangers with people. Now, obviously, there was the news story that came out recently from an interview she did where she basically said that she liked her time in AEW, and she enjoyed it and has nothing but good things to say about it, but that whole run, her heart was not in it. Seemingly saying that, yeah, I was just kind of there because it was the one place that would let me wrestle at that point, but now that WWE wanted me back because I sort of rebuilt my name a little bit, of course I was coming back. I love WWE. It's where I want to be at. And that left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Just a little bit. And obviously, I think it was more she was trying to say that, like, that run was more about proving that she still could and not necessarily being in the place she thought she was going to spend the rest of her career. And then the opportunity came for her to go back to the place that she actually thought she would spend the rest of her career. And, of course, you're going to take that. I think in any field, if you get a dream job like that, and that is your dream job, you are going to take it. But yeah, I think Fatal Influence, they just won the tag belts off of Brie and Paige. I think eventually we're going to finally get the women's tag title run of Nikki and Brie, because that's what they clearly wanted to do at WrestleMania before Nikki got hurt and had to replace her with Paige. And I think if you're going to do that, really build up Fatal Influence as this team that has the Bella Twins number. Right? They seemingly always find a way to beat them. And it just makes the Bellas winning that belt mean all that much more. Yeah. I do understand it is the women's tag belts. Does not mean a whole lot. So let's move on over to a singles match. The singles match between Gunther and maybe former, maybe current. I don't really know what they're going to do with him going forward, but former SmackDown GM Nick Aldis. It is so cool to see Nick Aldis getting back in the ring and wrestling. I always thought it was strange that when he came to WWE, it was not to be a wrestler, it was to be initially just a road agent. And after a while, in a very short while, in fact, they decided, no, this guy is too good. He cuts great promos, and he's got a lot of real presence and star quality to him. He's got a look, for sure. We should be putting him on TV. But we don't really have a spot for him as a wrestler, so let's just have him be the new SmackDown GM. It's really cool to see Nick Aldis getting a match on SummerSlam, too. For a guy that I didn't think was ever going to make it to WWE, despite having a lot of the qualities that WWE does like. And him going against Gunther, honestly, on paper, Walter versus Nick Aldis in, like, prime indie days of, like, 2018, 2017, that would have been great to see. on a show. So it's cool that we're getting to see it now. Now, as far as who wins this match, if it is not Gunther, you might as well just stick a fork in him. He is absolutely cooked. He is over. He is done. Gunther went from having all kinds of momentum coming out of the whole career killer thing that he was doing, right? Retires Goldberg, retires John Cena, retires AJ Styles. And it's a neat character aspect for him, but you can't make it his whole character. And I always did see that point, because that was brought up a lot when he was starting to do that, of, okay, but this only works as long as there are actually big names for him to retire. And once you run out of big names for Gunther to retire, what does he do? Because he can't do that all the time. And what does Gunther look like outside of the months where he's going to retire somebody? And I completely got that. And I thought, well, no, the career killer is not like his new complete gimmick. It is just a new aspect of Gunther to add to his presentation as the ring general. He is this dominant force. He is this absolute unit of a man who goes out there and kicks your ass. And guess what? If it is time for you to retire, if you are getting old, he is going to be putting you down like Old Yeller. And that is the whole thing of him. And I thought that's a really cool way to take Gunther. The problem is, when he's not getting built up for a retirement match, they seemingly don't know what to do with him other than put him into world title feuds that he is going to lose and come out looking far worse from. Remember the period where Gunther completely revitalized the Intercontinental Championship and actually made it mean something again? And then he got a world title push, and he held that belt, and it was like the most uninteresting thing ever because of who they had lined up as challengers and the way that they tried to build those stories. Gunther has taken a serious hit, and I think him losing to Nick Aldis, a guy who has not wrestled in several years, and who, in WWE's universe, has only ever been a general manager. He has only ever been a suit. To have him beat Gunther, it kills Gunther. He'd be dead in the water. And I think you have to go with Gunther winning this match if you are interested in continuing to make him a top-level fixture in this company. Which then moves us on to the main event match, or presumably the main event match of Night 1. For the Undisputed Championship, CM Punk defending the belt against Cody Rhodes. Before this match and this build was happening, this is one of those ones that it's like, yeah, WWE could run that and it would be incredible, and it would be a bona fide main event on any show, but especially on the big shows. Two of your biggest stars with a huge following behind both of them facing off. And, you know, for some people, adding in the bonus aspect of, hey, one of these guys founded AEW, and one of the other guys in this match, he had a really bad falling out with AEW. Obviously, they were never going to reference that on TV. It was never going to really factor into any of this in any way. But I think there is some part of that I think has fueled why this is such a dream match for some people. And WWE, in their infinite wisdom, has deemed that we should just be doing face versus face for this. And the problem with running a long-term feud that is face versus face, and not just, you know, a brief 2-3 week thing, where you only have to do a couple episodes of it, and you can very easily make it about respect at the end of the day. When you run a longer feud like that, and you're building it for one of your biggest shows of the year, it starts to get really boring when it seems like these guys mostly respect each other. Especially because it seems like that's how WWE just builds main event feuds for their big shows at this point. Because their biggest stars seem to all be at least somewhat faces. If not, they are completely faces. Right? There are very few proper heel acts at the top of this company. Roman Reigns is mostly a tweener. He's sort of this anti-hero type, but leans more face and has for a while. Seth Rollins just got done, finally, with his feud that seemed to never end with Division. Obviously, he's the face in that, and coming out of that, he is still a babyface. They have not done anything to make me think they've turned Seth heel out of nowhere again. CM Punk has been a face since his AEW return. Dude, in this entire return run to wrestling after the long break away, not once has CM Punk gone heel and completely played the heel. He has always been presented as this sort of conquering hero of the people. And Cody Rhodes has not been a heel in ages. And those are sort of your four top stars. And even then, like, Seth is kind of on the cusp. He's sort of right there at the edge looking in. Like, if those three are sitting at the table, Seth is, like, off in the kitchen sort of looking through the doorway at them. And that's kind of it for the top of your card. Like, you could argue Brock Lesnar, but he's never around. And I do think there is a certain segment of fans that after he got named in the big lawsuit that's now settling out of court, it turned a lot of people off of Brock Lesnar. On top of the fact that I think there were a lot of people like me who remember the period where Brock Lesnar would hold world titles hostage and would never let go of them and never show up for work, and then when he did, he would just dominate all the people who've been here all the time and make them look like complete losers in under 10 minutes and never ever give that back to him. So there are a lot of reasons for him to not necessarily be considered that because he's such a part-timer at this point. And so when you get to these big shows, unfortunately, you have to sort of build these face versus face feuds. And the only way those really work in a long-term fashion is if you have one start acting more heelish than the other. Or if you can get really, really, really kino with it, and you can make it a storyline that is so intricate and delicately woven, where both guys are still faces. In their own minds, they're still right, and they do have legitimate justifications for why they don't like each other and why they want to fight, but they're also at conflict with each other because of their own hang-ups. And they even maybe acknowledge that they have these hang-ups in character flaws. That's just really good storytelling across any medium. But this has not been that. At least not in any successful way. And so coming into this, what should have been an easy, just slam dunk Night 2 main event is now main eventing the first night, which, no matter what WWE or some fans will tell you, it is not a true main event, and it is certainly the lesser of the two if you are considering both to be main events, because they are technically two different nights of a show. But they are getting, like, the big moment before intermission happens. Right? We are in Act 2, and the curtain goes down for the intermission at a stage show. That is the position that Punk and Cody are in going into this weekend. And that's a shame, because it really should have been so much bigger. As for who I think wins, I think if you have Cody win this match for the title, you have to turn him heel at that point. You cannot have Cody come in and do the same thing Cody has been doing with that title for the entirety of this year, where he will lose the belt or come near losing the belt, just to miraculously find himself back in a position to win it back, in which he finally does, again. I think there is a segment of fans that seems to be growing consistently now who are sort of resentful of Cody at this point, who find him to be a bit of a hokey shill, or at least a stale character who does not really present any advancement in his character and in his presence, and people have started to grow tired of it because it goes stale. Everything has a shelf life in wrestling, and sure, the shelf life on Cody's babyface run as the American Nightmare has been tremendous. One of the best. A true, I'm not going to say quite Hulk Hogan level, because Hulkamania was a whole different beast, but it has a lot of its similarities in there. And the big one of those is, no matter what happens, and no matter how many times Cody beats somebody else's favorites, or the audience's favorites, and certainly certain segments of the audience's favorites, Cody continues to be extremely popular, and people want to cheer Cody. But I think you have to do the heel turn at some point. Even Hogan needed a heel turn at some point. And doing it now with Cody, and going full in on Cody being this sort of corporate stuffed suit shill, and that's the whole reason that he is the champion and why he keeps getting these opportunities handed to him, there's something there. Now, if Punk wins and he retains this belt, I think you can sort of leave it as a mutual respect thing, and Punk just happened to be the better man on this night. And you can continue to do what you want to do. Now, do I think Punk should turn heel? Probably. CM Punk as a babyface is one of those things, it always has a definite shelf life. And we have hit the point where it either needs to happen, or he's going to start getting the same treatment, where people grow resentful of him, and grow tired of seeing him on TV, and just start feeling so bored and uninterested in anything he does. And I think there is some level of that already. But the longer you hold off on turning either of these guys heel and letting them finally do that run, the worse it is going to get for them as far as fan reactions go. This is a true 50-50 in my head. I could see it going either way. But I want to say, sitting here right now, as we build up to the show this weekend, I want to say CM Punk is going to retain this belt. I think we're setting up enough stuff with Sami Zayn that I could see Sami getting his rematch with Punk and trying to win it. And I think it means more if it is him going against Punk than it is if he's going after Cody again. And with that out of the way, let's move on to night 2 of SummerSlam. And I think, again, I'm going to start with what I think is going to open the show. The Intercontinental Championship match, Penta defending against Chad Gable. Poor old Chad Gable, man. This dude, what was it, 2-3 years ago at this point? This dude was setting himself up to win an Intercontinental Championship on a show, beating Gunther at the height of his powers. And getting this incredible feel-good moment where, again, you sort of elevate a star to a new height, and now they are a fixture of that sort of level of your card. And instead they went with Sami Zayn. And then you have the whole fiasco. I don't want to say fiasco because there is some good that came out of it. And the early days of it, with him being goofy, comedy, wanting to be a fake luchador, was fun for a little bit. But him going off to be El Grande Americano and having this beef with all the luchadors, and then he gets a very serious injury, is out for a long time, comes back, has one of the best matches of his career against Ludwig Kaiser as the other El Grande Americano, mask versus mask. it really did a lot to boost Chad Gable's stock. And I think that if WWE is smart with this is going to be Chad finally winning the belt that has eluded him for years at this point. I mean, recently with some of those releases and people not wanting to re-sign under restructured deals, we saw Sheamus leave WWE. Right? And it's like, that dude, if there was anybody who I felt like was going to be a lifer, you know, there's a list of guys I figured WWE lifers, right? And you've got a few of them. Like, I see Roman Reigns as a WWE lifer, John Cena, WWE lifer, Randy Orton, The Miz, probably. But of those guys, one of them I always thought of was Sheamus. This dude could have left years ago and had an incredible run anywhere else. Could have absolutely done the Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre thing of go back out on the indies, absolutely tear it up, become an undeniable mainstream in the wrestling world anyway, success to the point that people are constantly talking about you. Make them regret ever letting you go. And then come back and be a renewed, dominant version of yourself that really found yourself on the journey through the indies. And Sheamus never did that. Sheamus was always kind of content to just be whatever they needed him to be. And he had been building for a very long time. The only accomplishment he wanted to achieve in his WWE career that he had left was win the Intercontinental Championship, because he never did it. And they put him in opportunities to do it a few times, never did it, and I think in the moment it was probably we've got Sheamus around for however long his career is, right? For the rest of his career, we got this guy. So we can afford to not give him the belt now, and in a few years, when we need somebody to be champion, we've got a reliable in the back, and we'll give him the belt. And he can finally have his big moment. That's a big moment we get to save for a show that maybe is lacking on big moments going into it. And now he's gone, and you're never going to get that chance again, because I don't think Sheamus has much longer on his in-ring career. He might be one of those guys that goes on for an extremely long time, but with the wear and tear that guy's put on his body, and the level at which he works, and the style that he works, being outside of the WWE umbrella and having to elevate that to match people's expectations of what he is, I don't know that he's got that much longer to do it before he's hanging it up. And I look at Chad and I kind of think the same thing. It's like, now or never. If he does not beat Penta for this belt on this show, in Minnesota no less, where he is from, having built this really interesting story of him sort of looking for forgiveness for all the stuff he did as El Grande Americano, and looking for his redemption, if you don't strike now, I don't know that you ever can. And it might be a situation, if they don't do it now, where they think, oh, we've got so much time with him left. And then in several years, when he either gets released, retires, or leaves, you never did it. And you never did it when you could have done it and when it was hot. And right now is the right time to do it. Chad Gable, while not nearly as hot as he was building into that Gunther match, potential Gunther match anyway, at WrestleMania, he's really done a lot, and he's been one of the most interesting parts of Raw, week in and week out. And I think you just do it now. Give him the belt now. We're going to move on to Sami Zayn versus Finn Balor for a number one contendership to the Undisputed Championship. Cool to see Finn Balor in this spot. He's not really gotten a ton of it, but WWE seems to keep flirting with the idea of pushing Finn Balor as like a singles high-level talent again, which is awesome to see, because he got pushed to that when the Universal Championship first came around, gets hurt in that match to crown the first champion. Even though he wins it, he has to vacate it like the next night on Raw, and after coming back from that injury, he was just always pushed as mid-card or lower. He was never, ever, ever taken seriously again after that. So it's cool to see him in that spot. That said, he still is also in this position of they are flirting with the idea of putting him back in that spot, but until we have a solid yes or no on whether we want to do that or not, we're just going to have you be kind of non-existent for the most part, or just do the occasional good match on TV, and that's really it. Whereas Sami Zayn going into this has all the story and all the momentum in the world. His last real good guy shtick is so good, and Sami is a master of making anything work in wrestling. This dude has a mind for the business like nobody else I think I've ever seen. He can do serious, he can do comedy, he can do arrogant and cowardly. He is incredible in the ring. He is great on the mic. And no matter what you have him do and what role you want to put him in, heel or face, he always makes it work. I mean, there aren't too many things I don't think Sami Zayn could do. And it was awesome to see him finally win a world title. It was such a feel-good moment that they unfortunately undid because they wanted to do Cody versus Punk on the show, and for some reason, we can't figure out a way to do that match without just making it for the title. So, Sami, you're losing the belt right away. And I think you need to have Sami Zayn win this match again, go after the title again, and honestly, I would hope win the title again. And let him have a proper run up until, like, I don't know, maybe Royal Rumble? Like, have him get through Survivor Series holding the belt, and maybe Royal Rumble he drops the belt to somebody. I think that would be fine, as long as you build him up during that, with having, like, really good challengers and defending the belt, getting some good defenses under him. I mean, we saw it with Darby Allin this year. You can do a short title reign, and as long as you have high-quality matches during that reign, and you do pretty frequent defenses, not necessarily every week, by any means, but, you know, where you can have him defend the belt, you have him defending the belt, it works, and people can get behind it, and people will really enjoy it, and I think that you could take that same template and apply it to Sami Zayn in this case. Have him have a reign that's, you know, a month, 2 months long, not necessarily that long in the grand scheme of things, but you have him putting on these great matches. Heck, you want to push Finn Balor at this level? Sami Zayn versus Finn Balor, rematch for the title, with Sami as champion. It's not a terrible match, and it's certainly one that you could do on an episode of SmackDown, or you could do it on a Saturday Night's Main Event, and I think it'd be a good match. And we'll see what happens out of this, because it might end up being a terrible match. Who knows? But if I had to guess, it'd be a pretty good match. And we'll see on Sunday whether or not it is actually a good match. But I think Sami Zayn has got to get the win on this one. We move on to another singles match. This time for the United States Championship. Trick Williams defending against Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin's back in WWE, and he's slotted right back into the same spot they left him in. Going after a singles mid-card title, baby. Trick Williams, at one point this year, felt like he was a can't-miss star, and he was going to have a great run with this belt, and people were going to be super into him, and he was just going to keep building his stock and building momentum. And it seems to have faltered a little bit. As much as, yes, the feud with Sami Zayn did give us last real good guy Sami Zayn and how incredible that has been, it did nothing for Trick other than make him look way worse than he'd started it out as. And it's all down to the way they wrote it. I mean, the gingerbread man stuff, so hokey and outdated and passé, and it just made everybody look bad, and it made it look like a big joke. But I also don't know if I see in 2026 Baron Corbin winning the United States Championship. Especially considering we've seen guys like Rusev come back. We saw guys like Andrade, Aleister Black come back to this company. And they love to bring back these, I guess, weirdly nostalgic names, because it's been about 10 years since a lot of these guys were either coming into their own or were completely relevant, just for them to be sort of lower card filler names. People I know are reliably good hands, and they can rely on to put in a decent effort, but are never going to blow you away, and are not expected to get a major push. And that kind of feels like Baron Corbin to me. So, my prediction is Trick Williams retaining the belt. This really should be Carmelo Hayes. They should be having their match on this show, but, they decided to go with Baron Corbin instead. We move on to the 5-way ladder match to crown an interim WWE Women's Champion. Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, Chelsea Green, Charlotte Flair, and an opponent to be determined this Friday on SmackDown. It will either be Julia or Lash Legend. If I were booking this company myself, this would just be for the women's title. Rhea's been injured for a bit now, and I think the only reason they want to do this is because they think she's going to be back pretty soon. But also, and I love Rhea. Rhea's one of my absolute favorite wrestlers in the whole world. She's probably my number 2 women's wrestler in the world right now. But as much as I love Rhea, if she's going to be out hurt, and going to be out hurt for this long, especially when you have the other women's champion in this company never defending the belt, you need to do something with it. Other than just crown an interim champion, which basically means, you get to hold the prop until the actual champion gets back with it. And that is so sad for any of the people who hold it, because guess what? You don't get your title reign even recognized officially in the record books. Everybody's going to look at that interim tag at the beginning of it and go, well, you're not the real champion, though. It just does nothing for you. You get to have your picture taken with a belt, and if nobody knows any better, they're going to go, oh yeah, I guess you were champion for a little bit. Even though you really weren't. And also, if I were booking this company, and I was booking this match specifically, I would have Julia win on Friday and win the whole thing. And I would be having Julia as my women's world champion. Or my women's champion, I guess. Not women's world champion. But my women's champion. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think Julia has a chance of winning that match on Friday. I think it absolutely is going to be Lash Legend, because they seem to be building up this whole thing of, is Nia Jax and Lash Legend's friendship and partnership long for this world? Nia got several opportunities to get into this match, and for nebulous reasons never could get into it, and then finally for this last spot, her partner in Lash Legend gets the opportunity instead of her, even though justifiably Nia Jax does have a case for being put into that match. I just don't even know where to begin thinking of who is going to do this, right? Like, Tiffany Stratton, currently Women's U.S. Champion, at least I think still currently U.S. Women's Champion. I don't know, that's another belt that has not really done a whole lot for anybody. But I'm pretty sure she is still the United States Champion. But that said, she's sort of settled into that spot, right? She's settled into being sort of a mid-carder at this point. Which stinks, because I think there was a point in time where, she did feel like she was going to be a main eventer, and then they just didn't really do anything with her once she won the belt. Jade Cargill. Still, after all these years wrestling, she is still just so green, to the point that it seems like she's never going to learn to wrestle at a higher level than she is now. And also, had the Women's Championship, and did nothing with it. I mean, if Liv Morgan hadn't come around and done what she's done with this world title reign, Jade would probably have the record for at least modern history of holding a belt and never defending it. Like, I think she defended it, once or twice when she had it? I just don't see them doing that with Jade. I think there are other things to do with Jade at this point that don't involve her being a world champion. Chelsea Green? Chelsea Green's fun. Chelsea is a whole lot of fun. She's been a great mid-carder. And they just turned her face, which I think is an interesting position to put her in. I don't know necessarily that it works, because I think making her a face takes a lot of the specialness away from what made her gimmick so fun and interesting and beloved. But also, I think it's pretty clear this company sees Chelsea Green as a fun wrestler that you can put out there to get a reliably decent pop, but is never, ever, ever going to be anything more than maybe United States champion. Lash Legend, I don't think there's any sort of momentum behind her to make her a women's champion. So that narrows it down to Charlotte Flair. And wouldn't it be just like this company to go, alright, we need somebody to hold the world title in our women's division? Good old reliable Charlotte Flair. Right there. I mean, she is quickly trying to chase down her father's record for most world title reigns. She's like, I've got to keep getting these things. And seemingly, this is just an opportunity to put a belt back on Charlotte to then eventually run the Charlotte versus Rhea rematch, and we'll go from there. So I think Charlotte Flair has got this one locked down. I don't see anybody else in this match even having a chance of winning it. Moves us on to what has now become a human monies on a pole match, as Danhausen takes on Dominic Mysterio. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Dom, old dirty Dom, getting stuck in a pole match with Danhausen on this show. I think WWE is starting to realize that Danhausen, for as entertaining as he is, and he is quite entertaining, he is not bulletproof. And one of the biggest weaknesses he has always had is that his in-ring work leaves a lot to be desired. You know, it works when you're having fun and you're just enjoying yourself live at an indie show. And he gets up and does the Pee Wee Herman dance on the ring apron or on a bar. And he's doing the whole thing with the teeth and cursing people and everything else. Like, it's fun on that level during a match. And maybe WWE can make it work because they are the one big company that is most suited for that kind of thing. But also, I don't know how many people are clamoring to watch Danhausen actually wrestle as much as they are to see him be a weird presence that shows up and does really fun, entertaining segments. And I say that because they've also started to do the thing that they always do when a comedy character gets hot and successful. They speedrun how fast can we make this character unwatchable and annoying. How quickly can we jump the shark with this comedy character? And they are at that precipice now. Between an episode of Raw that had like 6 or 7 Danhausen segments on them, him doing things like getting his own parade float during the Knicks championship run, him having, a just terrible segment on this past episode of Raw that just was so unfunny and unentertaining that it killed pretty much any excitement I would have had for this. And of course, him getting stuck in the same old things that Triple H loves to book, which are long, never-ending feuds that go on so long that you stop caring or actively hate what they're doing and hate everybody involved. At this point, Dom should be higher up the card. I think he has been doing some great work, and him in AAA, him doing that stuff, it's been great. Him as Intercontinental Champion was great. But if you're not going to give him anything more than that to do, and you're not going to push him higher than this, you have successfully figured out a way to make sure that that happens. Like, if this was your perception of him the whole time, that he was no higher than this level, and we want to keep him there, put him in a pole match with Danhausen. Good. Good stuff. Just good stuff, everybody. As far as who wins this match, the smart choice is Dominic Mysterio. To end this feud, finally let the Judgment Day move on to something else, and especially Dominic Mysterio move on to anything else. The smart choice would be Dominic Mysterio. But this company just loves them that Danhausen. They can't get enough of this guy. And they've been doing a thing where it seems like anytime he does get a match on a big show, he always wins. And I 100% can see this company having Danhausen win this match and do some fun segments where Danhausen's spending the $100,000 on all kinds of weird, wacky stuff, where he maybe mid-match curses Dom, and that's how he gets the win, is Dom has some unfortunate mishap happen where, like, maybe his shoelace on his boot gets caught in the top rope when he's going to do something. Or maybe JD accidentally hits him trying to interfere on his behalf. You know, something like that. And Dom ends up losing. Danhausen gets a big win, continues his big streak on pay-per-view. And Dom looks way worse coming out of it. And honestly, that's what I see happening. I have to pick Danhausen on this match. I have convinced myself at this point Danhausen is winning this thing. And finally, what presumably is going to be the main event of the whole weekend. Another Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins match. Oh, brother, give me a break. I love Seth. After Punk left WWE, Seth became my guy. Big Seth Rollins guy. I think he is one of the best just all-around workers in the world. I think that 90% of the time his matches are the best ones on the show. And he's always great in his matches, even if they are misbooked and overbooked to hell and back. Even if his gimmick is pretty much always consistently cringy and awful and hard to watch and makes him look like a total dweeb and a total geek. Even if his promos are all the same thing and he used to at least spend half of it going in spite of all of it, I still always love Seth Rollins and I always look forward to watching him wrestle. Except for right now. I am so uninterested in watching Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins feud over their shared history from the Shield again. We keep doing it. We've been doing it for, a decade at this point? I am tired of it. We can move on. Yes, I know they were both in the Shield together. Yes, I know Seth feels that he was right to betray Roman and that Roman feels betrayed by Seth all the time and like he can't ever trust him. and that these guys just absolutely hate each other from their time in the Shield and how it ended. Let's ignore the fact that there was the Shield reunion that happened for a little bit. Let's ignore the fact that when Roman had leukemia battles and had to leave wrestling for a little bit, that Seth was the one that started off that run without Roman, carrying the torch for him and being the face, defending him against Dean Ambrose. Let's forget all of that. Because remember the Shield? Remember the Shield? Remember the segment where the Shield ended? Remember the chair to the back? Yes, I remember. I was there. I remember. As for who wins this match, I think it's just going to be Roman. I think Roman's going to hold this belt. I don't see a real reason to have Seth drop the belt, or Seth win the belt, rather, at this point. Like, what does that do for anybody? And I understand there's maybe some rumblings that Roman's going to be gone until the fall after this. Yeah, well, man, like, he's holding the secondary world title anyway. That one can be gone for a couple months. I don't know. It's just, I really couldn't care about a Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins match again in 2026. So that said, those are my predictions for SummerSlam this weekend. In spite of all of my moaning and groaning throughout this thing, and all of my prediction stuff, and my ranting and raving, I am still going to watch the show. I do always look forward to a good SummerSlam. And, you know, there have been plenty of WWE shows, and plenty of wrestling shows in general, where I've looked at the card and the build to it and thought, this is going to be awful. This is going to be a train wreck. There's going to be nothing good coming out of this, because nothing good happened going into it. Where I've been proven completely wrong, and it ends up being one of my favorite shows of the year. And hopefully, they can pull that out for this one, because a lot of the build to this has not been very good. But on paper, in isolation, there is a good card in here. And I think we might get some really good wrestling on this show. And I hope that we do. So hopefully they can prove me wrong. And all of my moaning and groaning is going to age like milk left in the sun. That said, thank you for listening to my long rant and rave. Thank you for being here. If you like this video, please hit that like button and or subscribe if you want to see all of my stuff. And of course, going to talk wrestling. I just ask we keep it civil, we keep it level-headed, everybody. We are allowed to have our opinions. We are allowed to have those opinions, and, you know, there is no one opinion that is truly correct or objective. That just does not exist. It defeats the whole point of opinions. And so, I think this should be a space where we can openly discuss our opinions and maybe have disagreements, as long as we don't make it personal, and don't take it personal when somebody doesn't have the same opinion as us. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening to that. And of course, until next time, everybody, I will see you later.